To live well is to prepare the soul for its highest perfection. To think well is to polish the mirror of the heart. And to die well is to pass, not into darkness, but into the radiance of intelligible being.
Welcome to Bookscape Epic Reads, where we dive deep into the world of popular books, exploring timeless classics and modern bestsellers alike. Join us for in-depth reviews, insightful discussions, reflections. Let roll.
What happens to the soul when the body dies? This is not a question of curiosity. It is the heart of philosophy itself. In Al-Najah, Ibn Sina's metaphysical architecture culminates in a vision of the soul that is not only rational and immaterial, but also eternal. Here, in the final ascent of his philosophical system, we arrive at the soul's destiny, salvation, not as reward or punishment, but as the transcendence of finitude, the return of the soul to its origin. Ibn Sina begins by making a clear distinction. The soul is not the body, nor is it dependent on the body for its essence. It is not a harmony of elements, nor a function of the brain. The soul is a substance, incorporeal and distinct. It comes into being with the body, but it is not of the body. Through rigorous demonstrations, he shows that the human soul, once actualized, cannot be annihilated. It is immortal by nature. Why? Because it is a rational soul, an intellective essence capable of universal knowledge. And what knows the eternal must, in some sense, partake in eternity. The soul's ability to grasp immaterial necessary truths, mathematics, metaphysics, the necessary existent itself, means that it is not bound by the material conditions of change and decay. But the soul is not born knowing. It must actualize its potential through discipline, knowledge, and purification. In the ethical and psychological chapters of Al-Najah, Ibn Sina outlines how the soul is a traveler, a pilgrim suspended between the world of senses and the world of intellect. It is tested in this life, not by pain alone, but by forgetfulness. The soul forgets its divine origin. It becomes enamored with the fleeting pleasures of the body. And so, salvation is not a matter of escaping the world. It is the recollection of the real, a return, a remembering. Death, then, is not an end. It is a threshold. For the purified soul, it is a homecoming. It sheds the veil of materiality and stands before the light of the active intellect, no longer through shadows or images, but in direct knowing. It becomes what it always longed to be, fully actualized, fully intellect, fully luminous. And for the soul that remains chained to the body, that never cultivated its intellect or restrained its lower desires, its punishment is not fire in the literal sense, but privation, alienation, darkness. A spiritual condition of being far from the light it was meant to approach. Hell, for Ibn Sina, is not about divine wrath. It is the natural consequence of a soul that has turned away from its true end. Heaven, likewise, is not about pleasure. It is the union of the soul with the intelligible world, the beatific vision of truth itself. It is the reward of knowledge fulfilled, of being reunited with what is highest and most real. In this way, Ibn Sina unites philosophy and eschatology. The soul is judged not by external law, but by what it has become. It carries within itself the seeds of its future. It becomes, after death, what it has made itself to be. Each act of thinking, of choosing, of seeking the truth. These are not mere moments. They are steps in eternity. To live well is to prepare the soul for its highest perfection. To think well is to polish the mirror of the heart. And to die well is to pass not into darkness, but into the radiance of intelligible being. For Ibn Sina, the philosopher is not merely a thinker, but a seer. A seeker of the afterlife, not by rejecting the world, but by elevating through it. The true afterlife begins when we awaken to what the soul is, a noble, immaterial essence that longs for the one who is never absent. Thus, salvation is transcendence, not escape, but fulfillment. Not flight from the world, but the world seen through, as veil and symbol. Not annihilation, but illumination. In the quiet of death, the soul meets what it has always known in secret, that it was not meant for dust, but for light. Ibn Sina, known in the West as Avicenna, did more than write books. He built a bridge that spans the mystical East and the rational West, that stretches between revelation and intellect, between Aristotle and the Quran, between ancient wisdom and timeless truth. Al-Najah, the Book of Salvation, stands as one of his greatest architectural feats, an edifice of thought that unites the many paths of knowledge into a single journey of the soul. In this final reflection, we ask, what has Ibn Sina given us, and where must we go from here? His legacy is not confined to scholastic systems or medieval textbooks. It lives in the very structure of philosophical inquiry today. He gave us an understanding of logic as the gatekeeper of thought, of physics as the visible shadow of divine order, of mathematics as the harmonics of creation, and of metaphysics as the pursuit of the necessary existent, the one without which nothing could be. But more than that, he gave us an ethical orientation of knowledge, a vision of philosophy, not as a sterile science but as a way of being, a path toward human perfection. For Ibn Sina, to know is not merely to accumulate facts, it is to transform the self. The philosopher is not just a thinker, but a seeker, a lover of wisdom in the truest sense, one who disciplines his soul, sharpens his mind, and lifts his gaze to the eternal. And this is perhaps the most enduring part of his legacy, his spiritual humanism. He believed that human beings are not beasts to be governed by appetite, nor machines reduced to biology. We are rational souls, suspended between the material and the immaterial, with the capacity to rise, to transcend, to know the real. His entire system, built meticulously from logic through physics to metaphysics, culminates not in mere speculation, but in salvation, the deliverance of the soul through knowledge, virtue, and illumination. In this, he anticipated not only later Islamic sages like Suhrawardi and Mullah Sadra, but also influenced the very roots of Western enlightenment, even if that enlightenment later severed itself from the sacred. But today, in an age overwhelmed by information and paralyzed by doubt, Ibn Sina's voice calls again, not to return to the past, but to remember what philosophy was always meant to be, a preparation for death, a rehearsal for truth, a purification of vision. What he began must be continued, for the crisis of our time is not technological, but metaphysical. We have forgotten who we are, and in that forgetfulness, we stumble in the dark. Ibn Sina reminds us, light is still possible if we turn inward, if we ascend the ladder of the soul, if we dare to think with the whole of our being. So what is the future of philosophy? It is not in specialization without purpose. It is not in skepticism for its own sake. It is in the re-enchantment of reason, the return of the intellect to its sacred source. It is in remembering that wisdom is not a product, but a path. Let us then walk that path, not only with questions but with courage. Let us rediscover Ibn Sina, not as a relic, but as a guide. And let us recognize in his writings a mirror of our own forgotten longing. In the end, the greatest gift of Al-Najah is this, that salvation is not elsewhere. It is here, in the struggle to know, to refine the soul, and to behold, however briefly, the one who is. And so we close not with an ending, but with an invitation. Think deeply, live wisely, and seek always the light behind the veil.
Don't forget to comment, like, and subscribe.